the money masters of misery with this tax they euphemistically call a cost of living. Don't you understand? It's just the cost to live, okay? Don't get all hung up on it. But I do get hung up on it. I want to be free. And I think if we're just being honest, we don't even have to be intellectual, just honest. In order for me to be absolutely free, which is truly free, all the way, completely free, utterly, completely free, then I need to be free from being born beholden to the money masters of misery. You do too. All of us do. Okay? That's the reality we must be preparing ourselves for. Okay? That's it. Bottom line. Okay? That's the whole thing in a nutshell. Okay? Is just understanding we could be free, okay, but we're not allowed to be free. And our paradigm, our reality would be dramatically and profoundly different. So much so that I say 180 degrees different. We just don't know reality from unreality because we've been born into this scene. So we kind of accept it and we go along and we say, oh no, the government should do that, the government should do that, we'll tweak it here and there, and we think we know this and that about politics, and we know this and that about social issues, this and that about economic issues. But really, what you know, generally speaking, is what you've been told to know and see things through the lens you've been told to see things through, that perception. Okay? And that perception, if you fall into it all the way, you are fully deluded. You're delusional. That's it, man. And that's the problem with so many establishmentarians that buy into this scene. We don't want to get too comfortable with it. Okay? It's just like what's going on in Houston, for example. Okay? How that's indicative, emblematic of what God really is really speaking to all of us to prepare ourselves for. It's very inconvenient. It gets people out of their comfort zone. Okay, and we can all imagine how traumatic that is, how our lives, how are we going to pay our bills, what's going to happen? I mean, all these fears, but it's money. It's the monetary losses that people suffer that they fear the most, right? Because it's just stuff, I mean, if you got their life, but these people are devastated. And, it turns the heart of the people to think of the homeless. How do the homeless view this thing? They've been living chronically homeless. We know we rush in there. We all got to do something. Is this a conservative issue? Is this a liberal issue? And we rush in there. We got to solve this problem. We got to help these poor people and all that. But they're just newly homeless. They haven't had any time out there. Okay, but it's those that are being discriminated against, really, and right under our noses, right in front of our faces. That's how they get away with their crimes. They're so like brazen, and we've been trained to accept this brazen criminality, corruption from the government, saying, yeah, this is okay to put $50 billion a year into Section 8 housing to prevent homelessness, and yet homelessness just starts soaring. And I mean, that's it. It does not working. The evidence shows, the statistics, the facts show it doesn't work. But the government says, no, just go along. Just accept this thing. Okay? But we can't just accept this thing, or else we're all going to be devastated just like all the people in Houston. I mean, God's trying to talk to all of us, and we need to step up and we need to say, I get it. Okay? And when you get it, you're going to have the right attitude. You're going to go out there and you're going to be somebody. And it's tough, man. It's really tough when people we're just also dependent on the money. And the point I made about volunteerism is a valid point. That to somebody that needs money, okay, to survive, they don't want volunteers out there. This is their job, okay. But we say, oh, this is an extraordinary, exceptional circumstance. I get that. So, but what about the chronically poor people that are dying out on the streets every day of the week? You see, no, don't pay attention. We don't have time for them. It's their lifestyle. They're lazy on drugs. Forgetting that, no, Section 8 doesn't have money to house them, but that's their job. The government allowed these problems to happen. They legitimized the bailout of '08, right? The government. So, yes, the government is directly responsible. Whoever you perceive the government to be, it was the government, the top politicians, that legitimized the theft of the wealth of our nation, creating vast poverty, creating vast wealth disparity. Okay, let's be honest. This is not intellect. This is just I'm pointing to the truth, to reality, to honesty. Okay, and if we're just honest with one another, then we're going to get it. God's with us. If you're ready for the truth, the whole truth, is nothing but the truth, but you can't have your own personal self-interest in the back of your mind while you're deciding what's the truth and who to turn to for it. Okay, because who's making up your opinion? Who's inside your head? Or you say, well, I don't listen to anybody. I just listen to my own thoughts. I figure things out on my own. Who are you? Where did you come from? Do you understand? You're a creation. Okay, you are owned. You did not create yourself. Your parents did not create you. They just did what came instinctively to do, to procreate, to have sex, okay, to have union. That's what they did because they had an instinct to do so, a godly instinct to procreate. God loves to create, and He made us to procreate. So you don't own yourself. So who should you let decide how to believe, how to think, what philosophy to adopt, which philosophy to throw away? Like the prescription to ignorance is bliss, this refusal to carry your fair share of weight of the cross of humanity. I mean, we're in this thing together, man. And I think people are starting to understand it's the serious nature of what we're going through. Alex Jones had Colonel Anthony Schaefer on, and he said a word that's been on my mind, this idea of irony, how ironic it is. I'm a guy that's been fighting against social, political, and economic injustice as far back as I can remember. My entire adult life I've been aware. I mean, with the assassination of JFK, I started figuring that out pretty young, okay? But I really got educated in it kind of late. But, you know, when I found out about the fact that JFK was getting rid of the Federal Reserve Bank, it all started clicking when I realized, I remember these silver certificates being circulated when I was 5 years old, silver notes looked just like dollars. He was supplanting the Federal Reserve notes. He was getting rid of the Federal Reserve. Understand what this nation has been through. We are all with PTSD. Okay, how can you not be? Okay, we don't know reality, and that's a point I want to make. And it's not really going to help anyone in the long run if you just try to fit in more and more and more and comply to this mess. No, you've got to work against it, man. People tell you, oh yeah, high housing costs are good, the mainstream media, and this pyramid of puppetry. Listen, I really didn't want to do a lot of pontificating this morning. That's what I call on my commentary, is really pontificating, right? Getting too preachy and all that. It's just that we really have to understand that we are one race. We are one family. We are humanity. And if Americans want to show the rest of the world what it's all about, then we got to start being conciliatory. Okay, that's the name of the game. It's conciliation, reconciliation with what you might consider the most vile, worst elements of Americans, of human beings, whatever, because we get them all in America. We've got a cross section of everybody. So that's it. It's just hold that olive branch out and prescribe to what Jesus taught. It doesn't mean you can't defend yourself if somebody's going to use lethal violence on you, and a punch to the face sure can be. Alex Jones had this black guy on. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he gets a lot of great guests on, and this poor guy, he was just cold cocked. Some guy for nothing. He didn't like what he was talking about. Is some Antifa guy or some, I mean, this is terrorism. This is intimidation. That's homicidal. Big guy, he just hauled off, pulled back, and punched him as hard as he could. That'd kill a lot of guys. I mean, that guy is pretty tough, okay, because he noticed at the last minute the guy was throwing a punch, so I think he had a little time to prepare himself, but because that would have thrown a lot of guys for a loop and maybe killed them. So that's the kind of thing that's going on, and man, it's horrible. It's so ugly, and Satan just loving it. The New World Order cabal, the Bilderberger types, the money lovers of misery with the patent to the money. Okay, those are the top guys on the pyramid, and the other guys at the very bottom. Okay, and I've got a diagram drawn up. I'll talk about here a little later, but. At the very bottom is the proles, and the blind, sleeping proles are the worst type. These are the most hopeless ones. That don't understand that they are utter slaves, okay, but they think they're free. But they're out there busting their tail day in and day out. A lot of these people are not getting ahead. They're not thinking about the fact they're going to need welfare someday. When they're not strong enough to do whatever job they do and they can't pay their rent anymore, okay, you could put two and two together and figure out you're going to need welfare, okay? That's what's going on here. And who's causing these problems? It's the precious government, okay? The precious government. We've got to wrap our minds around this thing. How many jobs would disappear if you just ended extreme poverty? How much cheaper would it be for society if you just ended desperate poverty? Do you understand how little it would take, how cheap that would be relative to how much it costs to keep one guy in jail for a year? Over $50,000 a year here in California? Do you understand? People think they understand inflation. You don't understand inflation unless you understand that it's utter market manipulation. It's anti-free market. It's anti-supply and demand. It's anti-capitalism. That is anti-progress. That means it's regressive. It's a regressive economic policy to enslave more and more of the public, and they don't understand they're being enslaved. And they support the establishment that's doing it to them. And they say, oh, it makes my head hurt to think about that. It's all my fault. That's why I'm poor. No, I don't blame anybody but myself, right? That's the way it is. And, here I am stuck perpetually, I feel, between a rock and a hard spot because I don't think I'm any more liberal than I am conservative. I don't think I'm any more conservative than I am liberal. I'm just trying to be a good American. I'm trying to be as best a human being as I can. Okay? But I'm telling you, I know what the hell I'm talking about regarding economic stuff. And I can tell you this much. I know that they've destroyed our economy on purpose. And it's really sad for all those people who the system has worked for. They say, look, I'm on the other side of the equation. And these people are firmly entrenched in keeping this ball rolling, keeping this trajectory going. The establishmentarians, the status quo, who it's worked for. I feel the sorriest for these people because the temptation is great to just deny your humanity, to deny looking through the lens of God, seeing through God's eye, his point of view on this whole thing, understanding your creation. You're the property of another. You didn't make yourself. You don't own yourself. You can't decide how long you live or where you go from here. Of course, unless you killed yourself, I suppose. Other than that, you can't. We need God. Bottom line, we need God. If Trump gets something done, it wasn't Trump that did it. It was the finger of God. And it's nice to see Trump stop. He stopped saying, he's being very, very tame with his tongue, okay, which is good because remember, we're all carrying the cross for each other. And by supporting Donald Trump, which I could be deceived, and that needs to be maybe the new attitude that Trump supporters, even the most devout, diehard Trump supporters, hey, look, maybe I'm deceived. Let's give the man some time and find out, though, okay, give me the benefit of the doubt temporarily, okay, and have a valid argument when you start saying stuff about somebody. Okay, just stop throwing all this, what you call, slander. Basically, it's just bearing false witness against somebody, lying, and it's very deceptive and it's propaganda ridden. And there's people with an agenda, and they're not liberal. Okay. They're not liberal. They act like fascists. They're intimidating. They're authoritarian. They're violent. It's like fascist. It's communist. And it's not okay. And we need to have a discussion about exactly what you mean by good socialism. Okay, let's talk about that and whose pockets coming out of. How's that all going to work? Let's talk about economic policy and sound money, monetary policies. Let's talk about progress regarding social, political, and economic issues. Let's define it. Let's forget the labels because anybody can call them sells anything if they want to besmirch the reputation of somebody else. It's the oldest trick in the book. It's called a false flag. It's called a frame up. It's called gaslighting, right? It's propaganda. And it's wrong. It's immoral. It's unethical. It's evil. But yet it's rampant in our society. And it's a tough pill to swallow. And like I've said, the only way to approach this thing is to believe people are genuinely deceived. It's like demonic, though, because they won't answer any questions. They just babble and hiss, and it's just crazy what some of these people are like. I'm talking about some of these more radical elements within the Antifa group because I'm Antifa. What the hell? You think I'm not anti fascist? But to claim that your opposition is automatically fascist because you hate fascists, okay, that's propaganda. That's deceitful. That's misleading. That's malinformation. That's miseducation, maleducation, whatever. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's unethical. It's unseemly. It's unbecoming. It's ungodly.